Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now, we have just crossed over 500 subscribers as of making this video. And since then, I want to give something special out. I want to do my very first tier list for a video. And I was thinking what I should do it for. I came to the conclusion that since we got Ian Garry and Rakhmonov fighting at the end of the month at UFC 296, two undefeated fighters, that gave me the idea of doing an undefeated fighter tier list for the end of 2023. I'm going to be going over the biggest undefeated fighters that are currently within the organization, putting them into a tier list, who is A tier all the way down to D tier, and at the very end, we're going to choose one S tier undefeated fighter. Now let me set some parameters. For the most part, I'm not going to name an undefeated fighter that only has one fight in the organization and a win on Dana White's Contender Series. I did make one exception, purely because he is already a fan favorite in the organization, and we'll get to him in a second. But before we get started, I just want to say thank you for watching my content, and if you're new to the channel and you enjoy this video, please consider a like, a subscribe, you know the drill. And without that out of the way, let's get started. Now, the first fighter on our list is going to be Mokaev. Now, I wanted to start this list with a controversial opinion, just so if you're new, you know what you're getting into here. Mokaev, I'm going to rip the band-aid off right now, is C tier. Now, do I think he's bad? No, I just think he's horrifically overrated. The fact is, he looked great in his debut, yes, but he nearly lost to Charles Johnson. I understand he won the fight. I'm not saying that it was a robbery, but he was very clearly outstruck in that fight. He stuck to his game plan. He won the fight that way. I can't knock him for that. And the fact is, even though he nearly got finished by a knee bar, bro has that dog in him and just didn't tap. That's the only reason we're not going down the D tier, though. Because I remember the first time this man fought in England. I forget who said it, but somebody said that he is Khabib-esque in his fighting style, which is fucking wild. No. And for that, you're going down the C tier, brother. I understand you're young, but that is why we're keeping you away from D tier. We're going to get through what a good example of a D tier fighter is. Next up, we got Basharat. Now, I'm going to confuse a few of you. Basharat is also C tier. Same thing with Mokaev. But I'm going to flip him around really quick. I think Basharat is a more legit deal as of making this video than Mokaev. I understand that this could age very badly later on, and Mokaev later becomes a champion. But the fact is, as of right now, I really like Basharat. One of the first fighters coming out of Afghanistan. Bro's a dog. I really enjoy watching him fight. The fact that he was able to destroy Trevin Giles the way he did. I know his last fight ended in a no contest, and for some people, that's a disqualifier for him, not making it onto this list. But, what are you going to do? Ref, it is what it is. There was a lot of weird calls on that Abu Dhabi card. But Basharat is still undefeated. But he's not bigger than some of the other people on this list. And for that reason, I'm going to put him in C tier, but he's going to be the head of C tier. Now, our very next fighter is going to be Saraputin Magomedov, the Bullet. Now, I'm going to rip the band-aid off again. I got to let this be known. Bro is D tier, okay? And he can climb up the rankings later on, but I understand I'm not putting him at D tier because he looked bad in his debut. No. And I know I said at the beginning of this, I'm not going to put anyone on here that's on their debut. No. But I made an exception because there was so many people that were blowing him up before he even made it into the octagon. Bro got mentioned on the JRE before he even made it into the octagon. Brennan Saab was blowing smoke up his ass before he even got into the cage. And let me just tell you this. Yes, he looked good against Bruno Silva. I understand he couldn't finish him. Neither did Alex Pereira. But bro has zero takedown defense. Even Dana in the middle of an Abu Dhabi post-fight presser when everybody is behind Putin. When they ask him, do you think somebody like Putin is the future of the sport? Even Dana had to say, well, I wouldn't say the future. I mean, he's pretty one-dimensional, actually. Great striker, but, like, not really any wrestling. He will not be undefeated for very long, but he does have Ali Abdelaziz as his manager. He is severely fighting out of his weight class at middleweight. He looks like a welterweight. If we want hopes of him being undefeated for longer than 3 fights, go down to welterweight, because the fact is, he's going to have to fight people like Bo Nickel. And yes, we're going to be dealing with him on this list, and I understand he's also one-dimensional. But I would much rather be one-dimensional as a wrestler than one-dimensional as a crazy kickboxer. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not even saying he's not entertaining. But dude got submitted at an 80cc open by just your average run-of-the-mill black belt. Understand that I don't have a lot of faith in you. And for that, you are going in D tier. Next up on this list, let's get positive really quick. We got Khamzat Rakhmonov. One of the most well-rounded people, at not just welterweight, but in the UFC right now. It is kind of crazy that this crazy guy from... Bro's from almost the middle of nowhere, okay? I think it's Kazakhstan. If I'm saying it wrong, don't hurt me. But bro was fighting savages on the regional scene. Most of the people that he was fighting in his beginning of his pro debut have later gone on to become pro or have beaten people that are pro. And he's finishing everybody in the first few rounds. Like, I am extremely hyped for that. He had that fight with Jeff Neal where he bully choked him. I think he destroys Wonder Boy, but I don't have to worry about Khamzat saying something bad in the post-fight presser because bro can barely speak English. I think he's going to become a fan favorite. He is criminally underrated by most people in the fan base because he's not a superstar yet. But I'm telling you this right now, by the end of 2024, I believe he will become the welterweight champion. And for that reason, Khamzat Rakhmonov is going to be our first A tier of this tier list. Now, next up on this list is going to be Ian Garry. Now, we can point and make fun of his family situation all we want. We can talk about the stuff that happened with Neil Magny. We can say all of this. Bro's a really good fighter, though. I think he tunes up Vicente Luque, and I think a lot of people are going to be mad about that. But I think Ian Garry is going to put on a great performance at the end of this month. And he is an extremely great striker, good fight IQ, does get clipped once in a while, though. And his grappling hasn't been tested yet. So, I wouldn't say he's as one-dimensional as a Khamzat Rakhmonov. But I would say it is a worry of mine when he fights somebody. Did I say Khamzat Rakhmonov? No, I mean Putin Magomedov. He's not a Putin Magomedov clone. And I have more faith in Ian Garry than Sara. And for that reason, we're not going to be at D tier. And since he's already going up these rankings, fighting people that are legit, for that reason, he is going in B tier. But we're going to stay hard B tier, okay? Next person on this list is going to be Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is probably the most well-achieved of everybody on this list. Like, pretty easily, actually. But here's the problem that I run into. You can be undefeated, you can be a phenomenal fighter at featherweight, but if you haven't fought Max Holloway or Alexander Volkanovski, how good are you really? Like, I understand he beat the dog shit out of Bryce Mitchell. He 10-7'd Josh Emmett. Like, he is a phenomenal boxer. Good jiu-jitsu. Very well-rounded. But I just don't know what's going to happen when we throw him against somebody like Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. So for that reason, I mean, like, I'm going to cap it at A tier. But I'm going to spoil it right now. He is definitely not an S tier level undefeated fighter. Does that make sense? Next person on this list, Tatiana Suarez. I knew I was going to get in trouble if I didn't name at least one female MMA fighter. But here's the problem with women's MMA is there's good. And like being good in women's MMA isn't the same as being good in men's MMA. There's being really good, and then there's being the champion. So I think Tatiana Suarez is really good, but here's the problem. You can be undefeated, and then you look like shit when you have to fight the champion. Like, that's the problem with women's MMA and why it's so hard to bet on it, is because we can have a really good women's MMA fighter. The moment they get challenged by somebody that is of similar stock to them, they crumble. Like, there are people that are on a win streak in women's MMA that the moment they fight somebody that's even somewhat good, they're going to crumble. Okay? Like, I don't think I need to name examples, but I think you know what I know, what I'm talking about, okay? But she is good, and I have to put her somewhere. I'm going to put her in C tier just because I don't know. Next up, probably the guy that you clicked on this video for, Khamzat Chimaev. One-dimensional, but not Sarah Putin level one-dimensional. Not even Ian Garry level one-dimensional. Extremely exciting to watch fight. The most dangerous fighter in MMA history in the first round. But what I'm worried about is we're going to put all this hype into some guy, and the moment somebody takes him past the third round, he loses. Like, I'm genuinely worried about that. Like, I understand that I believe Khamzat Chimaev is a favorite to win against Sean Strickland, if I remember correctly. But I'm going to tell you this right now. If Strickland makes it out of the first round, I'm putting money on Strickland. Honestly. Because I think Khamzat beats most people in the first round. But I think the moment somebody has wrestling to survive the first and the second, and they can put it on him in the third, and if it's a 3-round fight, Khamzat wins just because he's won 2 of the 3 rounds. But if it's a 5-round fight, I wouldn't want to be in there with somebody like Sean Strickland who has proven cardio for 5 rounds. Does that make sense? But he's a proven talent. That's the thing. And for that reason, I got to put him at A tier. But where he's at here, I think it's pretty good. Like, I don't have as much confidence as I have in him as I do in Ilya and Shavkat Rakhmonov, but he's most definitely an A tier. But we're going to get into who the S tier is at the end of this video. Now, our next fighter is going to be Tatsuro. Now, I understand that he barely makes this list, and like I'm kind of forced to put him in D tier for that reason. I don't want to, but for the same reason, it is flyweight. Like, you can be really good at flyweight until you get into that top 5. That's the problem with these lighter weight classes, is you can be an undefeated prospect all the way up until you fight somebody that is in that division. Flyweight is extremely top heavy right now. Like, you had Moreno, Figueiredo, and now we got Pantoja running that division. I think he's going to be undefeated until somebody checks him. I don't think he'll be undefeated for his entire career. I think he gets smoked when he fights the top level of that competition. More well-rounded. I don't remember if I put him in front of Sara. He probably should be, but he has to go in D tier just because my confidence level is not quite there yet with him. Next up, we got Umar Nurmagomedov. Okay. Umar Nurmagomedov is definitely a solid B tier. Like, definitely above that C tier. Umar is a proven talent, power in his hands, great grappler. He's one of them wrestling Dagestanis. Like, we aren't worrying with like a Sarah Putin situation. And I would argue he has better hands than Khabib does. Like, this next generation of Dagestani is gonna be a problem, like, for UFC fighters. But if he beats Corey Sandhagen, he's an A tier. But before that, I kind of We're stun locked at B tier for Umar Nurmagomedov. I just need to see him fight more ranked opponents and stay undefeated. But if he beats Corey Sandhagen at the time of you watching this video, bro's an A tier. I'm not even going to fight it. Next up is Movsar Evloev. Now, time of this video, Movsar Evloev is set to fight Arnold Allen. That fight has not happened yet. But it's the same thing. I understand. Movsar has an extremely impressive record. But he gets hit. And I feel as though, even though he has an impressive record, undefeated, doesn't get finishes though. Gets hit. Knows the way to win. Uses that to leverage his way to victory. Like, I don't know. We're at featherweight too, so even if he beats Arnold Allen, we still gotta fight somebody like Max Holloway. We gotta fight somebody like Alexander Volkanovski before I can put you up there. So for that reason, that's another B tier for me. I was like, am I a bad person? But he hasn't done enough to earn that yet. If he can beat Arnold Allen, maybe I'll simmy him up a few other spots. Maybe. Next up is Bo Nickel. Okay. Bo Nickel. I gotta keep the same energy I did with Saraputin. But if you remember, I said it's better to be a one-dimensional wrestler than it is to be a one-dimensional striker. And technically, Bo Nickel has a finish via TKO, and he was outstriking. Like, I think that earns him above D tier. I think C tier is a fair spot for him. If he can get a few more wins over somebody higher in the rankings, maybe not a ranked opponent, but like a top 20 opponent, then we can start talking about a B tier to A tier ranking. Now, we got Khamzat Murzakanov. Khamzat Murzakanov was supposed to fight Khalil Rountree, got injured, and now Anthony Smith is coming in. I don't have a lot to say. Like, I'm going to be real with you. I haven't covered Khamzat a lot. He is undefeated. He does have to be on this list. And I mean, for that reason, I think you just slap him in C tier. It's light heavyweight too. Light heavyweight's extremely top heavy. Like, you can be undefeated all the way up until you fight somebody who's actually athletic at that weight class, and then there's a problem. Alex Pereira was able to come up from middleweight and become champion. It's not a very stacked division. That's all I'm really trying to say. So, I'm going to take that into account, C tier. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, who is the S tier undefeated fighter of 2023? I think I might have spilled the beans earlier in the vid. It's Shavkat Rakhmonov, man. Like, is there really any other option? I think Khamzat is going to lose. Even if he becomes champion before him, I think he loses to somebody who can take him past the third round. But I genuinely don't know who at welterweight is going to beat Shavkat Rakhmonov if Leon Edwards doesn't get lucky. I think if Shavkat becomes champion, he is running that shit for a minute. But hey, if there's somebody you feel as though I left out of this list, put it in the comment section, and maybe I'll respond, maybe I won't, we'll see. But if you enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, and again, thank you guys for getting me over. I think at the time of this recording, we're around 600 subscribers, and that's crazy to me, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Adios, guys.